नमस्ते शारदे देवी काश्मीर पुरवासिनी त्वामहं प्राप्तये नित्यं विद्यादानं च देहि मे. Dear Shubha Bhiksha Panda, Mr. Das, my esteemed colleague in the system, Assistant Solicitor General Mr. Prasanna Parhi, and all the esteemed colleagues and members of the Parishad and students represented by our Debashis. I think you are a practicing advocate or a student, Debashis?
I am still a final year law student, sir.
Oh, okay, student, right. I mean, it's I would say it's homecoming when it comes to Orissa High Court. I said this to Debashis and his colleague 8 weeks or 10 weeks back when I did one small session for them. I have loved and I would continue to love Cuttack for the simple reason my designation was happened on 23rd February 2006, and the first court which I visited out of Tamil Nadu as a senior was Orissa High Court on 10th March 2006. So it's a 15 long year association with the Cuttack High Court, the bar and the bench and my colleagues. It's extremely hospitable people. I loved my visits every time. Whenever there is a matter in Orissa, I've never missed it. So Bhubaneswar, Cuttack, Puri interests not only me but also my wife. So I'm very happy when there was a request that I should address all of you. There was no second thought. I just latched on it. At least I'm able to connect virtually with Cuttack because it's a long time since, almost 1.5 years back. Just before my assumption, I had a chance to come to Cuttack before pandemic. After that, it's almost 1.5 years or more since I visited Cuttack. So it's a pleasure to be with you all and happy to address things which are already known to all of you, because all of you would have been practicing for several years. But the idea of this talk is to reach out to our youngsters and people who are closely associated with the Parishad, and the responsibility, the additional responsibility they have as being a lawyer, and their contribution in terms of professional ethics and into the society. So that's the whole idea of talking to you. So whoever, I understand it's getting recorded, but when you please do share it with the younger generation. And they are the people who should listen it and try to practice. So this is the question I want to pose to the younger generation. What is that interests us as professionals, as human beings? We should be successful in life. We should be happy in life. And am I audible?
Yes, yes. Clearly.
We should be very happy in life, and we should enjoy life. These are the general assumptions, feelings every one of us carry. I don't think there's an exception to that. But there are a million ways to become successful, to reach what you want to attain what you want to in life. But there are also ways which are time-tested and found to be ways which are nothing but values of this soil, Mahabharata. And those ways are time-tested ways. It has stood the test of time. It has stood hard times, good times, bad times, influential times. And it has risen above all that and then still continue to perform. So what I thought, can I request others to mute, because I'm getting some echo. Request all of you to mute your audio, please. Yeah, thank you. Right. So Now the point is, let's understand. I want the younger generation to understand, how does somebody get reputation? How does somebody become recognized? Think that will be at this moment, as young lawyers joining the bar or a few years of practice of bar, you will not be looking at anything else. Our identity should be known. We should be visible. Our friends should know us. The court should know us. And we should be recognized. And we should slowly become a very reputed counsel. That will be our idea. It's quite natural. So for that to happen in your life, there is a formula. I'm not saying this is the only formula which I suggest, not at all. There may be hundreds of formulas. This formula is nothing but a conglomeration of reading the biographies of various successful people in various walks of life and profession. So how have they achieved this in their lives? And therefore, can we also go in that path to reach? So tailor-making those formula to our profession as lawyer, let youngsters remember the first step of professional conduct or ethics is, or to reach the doorsteps of professional ethics and conduct is. This should be your first step in your mind. Before you become a successful lawyer, you must be liked by one and all. That's the first step towards success in life. Every person who has accomplished and who has stayed forever in the memory of people are people who are liked. Whatever we say, let's have the benchmark as Nani Palkival. You can have the benchmark of your own seniors and high achievers and great judges of your bar and your court, because you will find them in plenty everywhere. Somebody who is remembered after their departure and after they creating a history. The first step towards that is, are you liked by one another? The first step. The second step is, once you are liked, people start trusting you. Professional ethics is all about trust. You will not be trusted unless you are liked. Therefore, they have put liking as the first step. A person who is liked will slowly be trusted also. Now, once you are a trusted person, once you gain the trust of people around you, it's common psychology that the expectations from you will start growing. You check the history of any successful achiever. You can't attain success, which is the 10th step, without crossing this or going through this mill. Grind yourself through this process and climb up there. So you should be liked. Like leads to trust. And trust leads to expectations. This is the third step. Now the fourth step is an interesting step. Trust and expectations are a cyclic combination. One leads to the other leads to the former, and they keep increasing in their velocity and in their circumference and in their reach. Take the life of anybody. So, when you are trusted, you are expected to perform. When more people start reposing expectations on you, then more people are reposing trust on you. So you will start expanding slowly as a good person because you are liked, as a trustworthy, nothing to do with professional skills at this stage, because you'll be too young, too small. You're a tender plant about to grow into a banyan tree. So when you grow with mutual trust and expectations starts keep increasing, then it leads to building the fifth important quality to stay in the profession strong and long. The fifth important quality is confidence. You can't become a confident person then you can say, I have a lot of courage, I have confidence naturally, all that is fine. But how far you'll be able to sustain it? Sustained confidence comes to you only when people expect out of you and people trust you. Now, here comes the important difference, which is the sixth step. See, the difference between confidence and arrogance needs to be known by young minds. Because if you want to be successful in the profession, ethical in your profession, and doing the code craft in the right manner, there is a lot of difference between being confident and being arrogant. People do not accept arrogance beyond a point, or they accept arrogance out of sheer compulsion and desperation. Arrogance is not something which everyone likes. We don't like it. When we don't like it, how do you expect somebody to like you when we go arrogant? It's not possible. Now, what is the difference between confidence and arrogance? Confidence stems out of trust. Arrogance stems out of suspicion and the mind to impose yourself through power, or whatever you have, you feel. Essentially, it comes out of diffidence, psychologically. The more and more you become confident, the more and more you are trusted, the less and less you will become, your arrogance will start coming down automatically. Because it's a compulsion, it's a cyclic. As I said, it's a reaction. So, this fifth and sixth step is very crucial in the profession. You can stay longer and stronger if you are a confident person and not an arrogant person. And for you to reach that level of confidence, you need these first four steps. All right. Once you cross the sixth step of getting over arrogance and becoming only confident, remember, confidence and expectation lead you to opportunities. This is the seventh step. Who gets opportunities? Somebody who is hardworking, capable, all those qualities will come a little later. When more and more people like you and trust you and you repose confidence in you, they will try to hand over work to you. Whether it's an organization or a system or a court or a, it's natural. Will you go to a doctor unless you are confident about the doctor? Simple. So will somebody come to us unless they have confidence in us? So confidence leads to opportunities. The seventh step. Then when an opportunity knocks at your door, if you have all this as a backup resource in your as a storage battery, namely confidence, liking, trust, expectation, then opportunities translate into success. This is the 8th step. Opportunities, usage of the opportunities, exploring that opportunities, working through those opportunities, one reaches success. It's the 8th step. And this leads to the 9th step. Success leads to reputation. Simple. If it is something like a cinema field, I will say popularity. But in a professional field like law, it is reputation more than popularity. It's not enough if you are popular, you should carry reputation. So the 9th step is reputation. And now there comes the climax. 10th step, reputation leads to recognition. Simple. So, as an youngster, as a budding lawyer, if somebody starts liking you, it can take you to the 10th step over a period of time of you being recognized as a great, true, nice, competent, successful professional. This is the professional ethics of life. If you read the biography of any successful person in any walk of life, you will be able to track down these steps in some form or the other. There will be more sub-steps, or there may be better steps also, which as you read or understand can comprehend. See, it's ultimately you tailor-make it to you to suit your needs. In our profession, there are only 2 great people whom I wish and pray every day. My guru, my professional senior, Mr. C. Natarajan, but for whom I would have been nobody else. Because I am not coming from a lawyer's family. Everything was because of my guru, who had all these qualities. And Nani Palkiwala has always been a hero in my perception. Benchmark. If I reach 1% of what he has achieved, well, then I'm a successful. I've done justice to the profession, is what I think. He's such a strong colossus and would remain so for a few centuries for every professional who walks into this line of work. And this has been the way he has grown to recognition. So, I would request youngsters, when you join the profession, have the thirst for a good recognition. That should be your motto in life. Making money, making success, making this, all that will come to that later. It will all come. Once you get these fundamentals correct, whatever has to come will come to you. Nobody can stop it. But the mission or your vision in professional life should be to be recognized as a good person and as a good lawyer or a counsel. Both should happen together. You can be a great counsel but a very bad human being. Not worth it. People won't remember you beyond a point. You can be a very noble person but not a very successful person. Then people will recognize you for your goodness. That's all. Not for your professional skill. So both should marry each other if you want to be a successful professional, which I wish every young child coming from the various universities of Orissa and elsewhere should aspire in life. Now, we go to the second stage. All right, these are the principal formula. But for somebody to be into the profession and how to go about the profession, there may be multiple views here again, but I strongly feel unless you have a good senior, a good guru, a guru or a senior is indispensable for you to become a good professional. In fact, today's law profession works on the business model and not necessarily on the professional model, which all of us here who are 50 plus are used to. What is the difference between a professional model and a business model? A professional model has an office, a senior, and a set of juniors and some staffs. Whereas a business model is like running an entrepreneurial firm all over the country, all over the world, with many branches, having 300 juniors, 400 juniors, 500 juniors. You have reputed firms in India and outside India, where you scale up things and structure it. In a business model, the relationship is maybe senior, junior, but the mentoring, to what extent it happens is a question, because that model has a different prototype to work. For it to become successful, you could not have scaled up unless you replicate that model. That's a model which is in stake. But the professional model is where you actually go virtually a tutelage or a gurukulam. I was with my senior for 14 long years, virtually at his feet. Virtually at his feet. That privilege I was blessed in life. And whatever I am today, good part of it, bad part of it, or the failed part of it will be my contribution. But the good part of it is completely attributable only because of my association with my late senior Rajan. So senior matters a lot. So I always wish, whenever I speak to law students, you should find out a good senior in your life, and it's a blessing. Like we get blessed with parents, we get blessed with good teachers in school, good teachers in college, good friends in life. One should also be blessed with a good senior. And why I say this is, as youngsters, I want you to believe. You are all today extremely overcapacitated. You are all technologically well connected. You can search and surf anything under the sun in any branch of law in any part of the world and come out with solutions. Extraordinary brilliance is what I see amongst the youngsters. The quality of abilities and capacities which you have built in the modern business, law schools and with modern gadgets is stupendous. Hats off to you. But remember, becoming successful in profession. I'm talking this as part of professional ethics, because unless you understand it as part of ethics, you will not believe it. Anybody can go to the rule book and find out the 7 lamps of professional ethics. In Advocates Act, anybody can read it. We don't need a lecture on that. These are all things we gain out of practical experience. Remember, unless you are associated with a senior, this profession is not, any profession for that matter, is not mere knowledge. It's not mere ability. It is not mere capacity. Professional skill is very, very important for you to succeed in the profession. And professional skill comes only when you work with a senior, and only when you experience the transformation in you. It is something very personal, physical, and something which is very, very practical. You can't read it in textbooks. You can't learn it out of a textbook. So, 2 things are very important. It is part of professional building. It's part of your professional requirement. 2 things. You should be blessed and gifted to go to a good senior. It's very, very important. At least few years you be with the senior before you join a big firm. Because that, it grinds your ego. It grinds your abilities of contact. It shapes you practically on certain finer aspects of professional life. That grounding is needed for every child who is coming up in life. And secondly, keep your eyes and ears open. You see, every bar has very good seniors. And Orissa bar has a lot of good seniors, a lot of good judges. I've had the experience of appearing for 15 long years. So you will be able to know which senior is in which branch of law and which senior is going to argue a matter. Put that diary, keep your diary clean and note the dates. If this case, sensational case, is going to be argued by somebody, internal counsel or external counsel, plan your work in such a way that you are there to watch it. Keep watching great seniors presenting the cases in your court. Whether it's a trial lawyer in a trial court, when I say great, not necessarily only in the high court. In every bar, there will be a bar for criminal law, and in civil law, that trial lawyers are there. Because the anxiety of many judges now is cross-examination and trial law is actually getting killed. Because not many prefer to do that. It's a great art. Art of cross-examination is a great art. I've never had a big opportunity in that area. So I've straight away joined a practitioner in the High Court. It gives you immense satisfaction. It gives you immense professional delight and dignity doing that. So if you can get an experience, you get that experience. So whichever part of law you practice, keep your eyes and ears open. Keep watching the presentations of great seniors. You will know a lot of things. You will know how he presents it. You will know how the court reacts to it. You will actually learn professional ethics as a practical training when great seniors do great cases before the courts, irrespective of the court of practice. You will learn, you will see practically what is professional ethics. So, 3 requirements when it comes to senior. You should be attached to your senior. Keep your eyes and ears open to watch how it happens, presentation. And this is what our scripture says, at least our soil believes. This may be a spiritual statement, but it applies to every profession. Who is a good Shishya to a guru has been referred and commented upon. A Shishya who actually becomes the shadow of the guru is a perfect Shishya to the guru. That is the kind of, you should become a blotting paper. See, your shadow can't be reflected by anybody else. Your shadow can be only yours. So our scriptures say, a training by a Shishya over a period of time will make Shishya virtually a replica of the senior or the guru. So that when what gets reflected is not Shishya's shadow, it is Guru's shadow which is reflected as Shishya. That's the beauty. You can know all this only in this soil. You can't know it anywhere else. Our soil being bound in Bharat, being Bharat Mata being our national pride, our mother, our divine mother, it's a fortunate birth for all of us. Irrespective of caste, color, creed, religion. Born in India, you start up with an advantage. Because we have the tradition, we have the values to support us. See, the secularism which is often talked today is completely different from the secularism which we have been practicing for time immemorial. Nobody needs to teach us secularism. Because we are born in that system of life. We have had 600 Maharajas before independence. And we are still called as Sanatana Dharma, we are still called as Mahabharata. Okay, that's the history we carry for centuries, for yugas. Why do we say we know secularism? Because this dharma always allows to assimilate anybody into the system. Assimilation is our strength. So I want every child to know the ability to assimilate. You should become part of that assimilated whole as Bharat. It's a request I make to every youngster. Once your identity should be the assimilated identity of being a citizen of this great country and make it proud. So, these values don't come from books. These values come only by you reading the biographies, watching people, moving around people who are so well-spirited. You will find these people in every nook and corner of this country. Don't say, no, we in our place, we don't have people with a national spirit. No, never say that. Length and breadth of this country, you will find them in abundance. You will have to only ensure that you align and inherit those rich qualities from them. So, senior is a very important aspect in life. Now we come to the third important aspect. So far, we have been talking about tangible things. You do this, you do that, something which is coming out of effort. Here comes the most important critical component, which I want all the youngsters to understand. See, there is something called a tangible effort from your end. And there is something called the intangible events that happen along with your efforts. I want every professional child coming up in the profession to believe professional success is a combination of your effort and divine effort. If you believe in God, I will call it as divine effort. If you are a non-believer in God, I don't want to impose it on you. Something beyond your abilities. What I want the children here to understand is, please remember, I have traveled 55 years. Dasa would have traveled a little longer than me. The rest of you would have traveled a little shorter than me. But we have traveled good distance. At least we have completed half of our life or 3/4 of life, God knows what. Good part of life. And all of us can say today to our children, please understand, as you travel back, if I look back, everyone can look back and you will find a lot of people coming into your life and helping you. And lot of events happening beyond your control, which has helped you to surge ahead in life. So I want children to understand, as senior is very important. The third component of success in life is people will come into your life and events will happen into your life. Cling to them till the last. Everyone will get this opportunity. Unknown, unpredictable, impossible, incalculable, but it will happen. Now, all the successful people in life, in their biographies say, something happened to me which I didn't know. This person walked into my life and helped, and they remember them with utmost indebtedness and gratitude. So, gratitude is see, I don't deal professional ethics in the rule book. My understanding of life of professional ethics is something slightly different. Because that's why I said we speak from the Indian origin, not the Western thought. Our professional ethics is grounded on these fundamental principles. We are talking of professional ethics from what Bharat means to us. and you can replicate it, you will be successful in any part of the world. Please understand, because today Bhagavad Gita is being praised, being adored, being worshipped, being learned all over the world. Because why do they say? See, why are our texts, our scriptures celebrated all over the world? Because they are selfless. It applies to the entire humanity and also to beyond humanity to other. Because we say you should patronize animals, you should patronize birds, you should respect worms. We talk of universal happiness. We don't talk about personal happiness. Therefore, the model which we are trying to say as professional ethics, third point is remain indebted and remain with gratitude and great deep sense of gratitude to whoever has come and done some help to you in life. See, these are all things which will cumulatively go for the scoring card. See, there is an examination which the maker will conduct. No, as we pass exam here, get degrees, we conduct cases, succeed, there will be somebody who is measuring us. So he will see how you are reacting to these situations, these connections, these influences. So this sense of indebtedness and gratitude with a good senior and with the first 10 formulas prepares you for a great journey in life. So don't miss people who have supported you. Don't miss those glorious events which has turned your life into the next, or taken your life to the next stage. So this is a third important aspect. When these three important aspects combine together, now we come to professional ethics in terms of work. It's a fourth stage. First, I wanted to give you our basis, how our dharma has taught us to do our profession or any profession. You will not find it in any book, because books prescribe cultivated thoughts. I'm not saying they are right, they are unknown. But this is something which we have been practicing for yugas. So have these principles first set in your life. Now we go to the professional ethics in terms of work ethics. What are the components of work ethics in your profession? See, here again, there will be a lot of things to say. I'm going to narrate a few, which my guru, my senior, late C. Natarajan has taught. Yes, whatever I know through the profession, I know only through him. Of course, seen other great seniors also, no doubt about it. But he was a benchmark to himself. Therefore, he was a reservoir. He was a university. Therefore, I could learn everything from him. If I have not learned, it's my mistake, not his inability to teach. So there are a few things which we need to understand. One, the first principle, what should be the way you work? Client is the most important critical part in our profession. Okay, that's something. Respect to the client. The way you shout at a client, the way you misbehave, don't do all this. Client, God gives you a client for you to survive. For him to be helped is different. For you to survive in the profession. So respect a client, whoever he or she may be, from whichever rank they may rise in society. Please don't dishonor or disrespect a client. The first thing. How should you deal a client? Remember, this is what my senior taught me. Remember, how would you expect a doctor to treat your wife when you take her to the clinic or to the hospital? You will expect the best of care on her from that man whom you believe to be a good professional doctor. Have this in mind. Every time you address a client, that sense of responsibility you should discharge on that client. This client, hey, come on, yes, come. For that client, don't pick and choose when you are growing in life. You're not become big or big enough. And don't do that also. If you're not able to say, politely say, I'm not able to take the brief. So this is the first important aspect in work ethics. 2, most important principle as a professional, especially a lawyer, when you're growing in life, don't classify the cases that come to you as small cases or big cases. Whatever case that comes to you is an opportunity for you. And very importantly, don't think never in your life, small case means small efforts, big case means big efforts. Don't do that. Please don't do that. Whatever effort is required in a particular case, if this case requires this much effort, you should put that effort in that case. Don't have your own yardstick of measuring. You will not do all this if you are with a good senior. Whatever I say is what is taught to me and practiced by the senior. So the next quality is, see, you must be used to adjournment. You must be used to cases not happening that quickly. The system works in a particular way. But whenever a case is listed, you should be fully prepared for that case. Because you can simply be caught by surprise on a particular day. You would think court is going to adjourn. The judge will say, no, suddenly the 30 matters will collapse. It will suddenly reach. A judge will say, we are prepared, go, shoot. And you can't be saying, my lord, my book is there, I'm not prepared, I'm meant to get. You have lost your opportunity. Especially as youngsters, every time we get nothing wrong. Are we not eating every day? So why not we prepare every day? Even we are eating the same food every day. So routine is not something which is impossible in our lives. You should make in your life, you should make routine a habit. Whether the case happens or not, you should read the brief thoroughly. Never be underprepared or unprepared. You will simply be taken by a storm. There was a very important case yesterday involving 1,500 crores. Something which both sides did not anticipate yesterday. Suddenly the judge asked, may I know the list of dates of these happenings and how it culminated? Suddenly, as the case was progressing. Fortunately, I had the notes. So I told the judge, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 dates, over. A question which could not have arisen at all in that matter. Such surprises will happen even at 55 years to a lawyer. Please be prepared. Never assume that everything will be under your control. You will be deceived 9 out of 10 times if you believe so. Always anticipate something can go right or wrong beyond your control. So fully prepared. There cannot be inefficiency there. Then you are doing injustice to your client and injustice to yourself in your progress. Then more important, 4th aspect. For all this, I'm coming to that bottom core line. Integrity to yourself and integrity to the job you do and integrity to the court. Very, very important. See, you can become very successful. You can ask me, you can throw a counter question to me. Sir, are you saying all professionals have succeeded through integrity? Answer may be no. I agree. But people who have had this quality have stayed, have been respected, have been recognized, have been remembered. So recognition, respect, remembrance comes only when you have this quality. This makes the difference between the rest and me. All of them will be successful. I am nobody to discredit that. And success can be achieved in a million ways. But you should be respected, you should be recognized. During your lifetime, you should be respected, you should be recognized. And after your lifetime, you should be remembered. Palkiwala ji is remembered after 20 years of his demise. 21 years after his demise. Why? And he'll be continued to be remembered for. Justice Chagla is remembered even today as one of the greatest judges of this country. Why? Because of their quality because of their integrity to their jobs. One of the greatest judges India has ever seen. His brain has been always very different. All of us know that. So recognition, remembrance happens only when you have practiced integrity in life. So this is an important component and indispensable. You must trust. See, we will win, we will lose cases because of lack of the structural happenings. But we should not lose our quality of integrity. Then we are losing ourselves. So work ethics. Next important ingredient in work ethics is never ever say profession is boring. See, you are fortunate to be a practicing lawyer or going to be fortunate joining the bar because every day is a new day, it's a fresh day, it's a fresh habit. There's nothing called boring because your routines will change. The nature of cases will change your routines in your manner of preparation, manner of conduct. There will be some routine. But novelty is part of a lawyer's life because you keep developing propositions every day. So never ever say, see the biggest example, the live example I can show to you is our learned Attorney General. He's 90 years old. And he works the longest and the strongest amongst all of us. The kind of ability he displays, the kind of vision he can put into a case. He's 35 years elder to me. One generation to me. For you, it's twice. At 90, somebody can stay put for long hours of work every day, 365 days, without a break. Never ever. At 90, he doesn't say it's boring. Oh, it's fine, yeah. I don't want to do it. He doesn't say. He just doesn't say. You have living examples today. In 2021, I'm showing you an example for all of us to follow. For all of us to follow. So never say profession is boring. Three things are very, very important in professional ethics. A, you must, this is a true profession where you can do karma yoga because you are accountable only for your work. I will take another 15 minutes. Can I take another 15 minutes?
Yes, sir. Continue, sir.
15 minutes maximum.
Yes, sir. Continue, sir.
15 to 20 minutes. Panda, it's okay for you?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Absolutely.
Fine, sir.
So, because my junior is tipping me, 45 minutes is over. We want to continue. Just I should. We should be within time frame. Another 15 minutes, I'll try to. So, three things are important. You should work hard and deliver, but you must know results are not in your hands. A judge has to order your fate every time. Therefore, you have no control there. Don't get excited. Initial success, initial failure will bring you down, bring you up. As youngsters, you enjoy it. I don't deny it. But after you settle down slowly in profession, you are not responsible for your success or failure of the case. You are responsible for conducting the case for it to become successful or a failure. That responsibility is with you. If you mess up, then responsibility is with you. But if you have done a good job and you still don't succeed, you have to take it in your stride. So you will be on the rooftop one day, you will be biting the dust the next day. This is part of our profession. So be prepared for that. Remember, it is always very hard to climb in the initial years, but once you know how to climb, picking the fruits is not a difficult job. Climbing the tree is difficult. Picking the cherries from it's not difficult. So understand the difference. When you want to reach the fruit, getting there, taking it is easy, climbing. So concentrate on the methods of climbing properly. And three, as a lawyer, this is what my senior has taught me, which I want to repeat. Initial years, you should be like a painter, an artist. Put all the creativity, put it on a nice canvas, showcase it nicely, very good. But as years progress, you should convert yourself from a painter to a sculptor. You should be able to chisel every case. Take a hard stone, a shapeless stone, and give a divine form to it and bring out. See what, when you do a Mahaganapati or when you do a Shiva, what do? You take a hard rock, a shapeless rock, remove all the unwanted part. Shiva emerges. Okay. This is what our scriptures have taught us. So similarly, when you throw all the unwanted parts of a case, then this real, you have sculpted a great case for your client to be presented before the court. So become a sculptor over a period of time. This is further on the aspect of professional ethics. Now, professional ethics, part 2. One is work ethics, another is values, especially money. According to us today, value means money. Value means nothing else. Everything is measured in terms of that. See, there are certain important principles which I request our children to understand when it comes to professional ethics. One point you must understand: never chase anything in life. It's a request I make to everybody. If you start chasing money, power, status, recognition, if you start chasing, you will slowly start compromising in life. Because chasers get what they want, but only after they make their compromises. So you have to take a call professionally, whether you want to chase or you want to grow in the profession. There are two ways of doing the profession. Choice is yours. Whether you want to grow, evolve and grow in profession, or you want to chase and reach somewhere. You have fixed a goal and somehow you have to reach it within these 1 years. Even for people who evolve, they have goals. It's not that they mindlessly they grow, but they don't chase. So this distinction has to be understood. You have to take a call. Then 2, never have money as your destination in life. It's not going to give you happiness. You will have tons and tons of money and still you will not be happy. You should enjoy the fruits of your work. Yeah. And enjoyment of a professional work is not just returns in money. That is very essential. Whatever has to come will come to you. But you must enjoy the work beyond money. The satisfaction that comes to you is a composite package of several components: your effort, the way it has happened, what you have learned, what you have consolidated yourself, how you have grown to the next stage. All these things has nothing to do with money. And growth is a combination of several such factors. So never have money as the ultimate destination. Never work a case thinking money as an outcome. Money will come. Money will come. If you work well, people will give you cases. And if you do good work with all those cases, money will come. Because nobody now does anything free of cost. Nobody cheats. Professionally, if you have to pay, you have to pay. Nobody thinks they'll engage and then they'll run away. Where will they run away? They can't run away. They need you for the next case. So they will come to you and they will pay you. But don't concentrate on that. Concentrate on your work. This is something which, and last part of money is, as you are young, see, all of you have good hearts here. This young generation, because I'm speaking with students, all of you have good hearts. All of you have something to do. You feel you should contribute something to the society. All of you have that idea. So I will give you one secret which my senior taught me when I was 22 years old, when I joined the bar in 23 years. He told me on the first day, when money comes to you, disassociate whatever you want to contribute to the society, or you want to contribute to something. First, plan in your mind and disassociate that portion of the mind as not your mind. If you're going to receive 1,000 rupees, 200 rupees is not going to be, you want to contribute 200 rupees for a particular cause. Remember that you are going to get only 800 rupees in this case and not 1,000. This should genetically get engineered in your system. Only then you will have the mind to part money continuously throughout your life for good causes. Otherwise, you will not. The moment you imagine 100,000 rupees and it comes into your bank account as 1,000 as yours, the tendency will be, why should we give 200? Why not we give 100? Then why not we give 50? Why not? Why should we give this time? We'll use it next time. Next time we'll certainly, you will not. Next time never comes. When it comes to good things and charity. As a professional, it's our responsibility to the society. The society is paying us through the client. We have responsibility to contribute something to the society. So what you want to contribute, you decide. Scriptures prescribe the formula in every religion. But that is something which you have to take a call. But take a call and please dissect it mentally at the first element threshold stages. It's a request. So good hard work and the way you understand money in your life shapes your career as a good professional. Take it. 100%. Now, once this happens, what is important is, I'll take 5-7 minutes. I'll rush through the process because it's good. I'm slow today because it's working well. Some points are coming out nicely, so I didn't want to rush. But still, because with 7-8 minutes left out, I'll try to put a few points. When it comes to court, see, these are all very, very important in you. Gone are the days where you say, I fight a case. Never use the word fight in your life. That expression should go out of your mind in modern litigation. You should pursue a remedy. It's not fighting a case. It's pursuing a remedy. This change in attitude is very important. No court wants fight between lawyers and fight with courts. No judge likes it. Gone are those days. So pursue a remedy. Never fight a judge in your life. And you will have, and give you a list, the types of judges and the types of opponents which you will face in life and how you should manage your professional ethics. See, the type of judges, some judges will be very open-minded, in which case you can objectively discuss the case with that judge. It will be a discussion with the judge because he's open-minded. He is ready to allow allowances to understand the law one way or the other. Some judge will be very balanced and very, very, very cautious. With such judges, don't try to unnecessarily deviate. Then caution may become suspicion. You should be very careful. Now, there are some judges who are willing to understand and travel in that subject with you. See, it is good if these types of judges are very good, but you should be very cautious with them. You should be, they trust you. So you should be very honest in expressing the law. And assist them to the best of the ability so that they pick up the right threads. But in that sense, never convert that conversation or that case into a spoon feeding like a teacher and a student. Never allow a judge to become a student. It's dangerous. A judge is a judge. The decorum of a judge should be maintained till the last. Even if he's willing to understand, always go through the subject and the process with a lot of respect and dignity. Merely because he's opening up, let me teach you what the law is to understand. Judge will never then be with you. And if a judge is not with you, then you have lost the case. So you can lose a case after good arguments, but never lose a case because you have lost the judge. That's not good advocacy. So if a judge is very, very authoritative, fourth category, then you must be very submissive. Never give back an authoritative judge with authoritative replies. You are not going to win the case. When somebody expresses authority, because using that power, be submissive. Slowly you let him grind. he will come down and he will melt down at some point of time. You have to wait for that time. Then some judges will be ideologically driven. So if you are able to associate into that ideology and still convey the law, that is the path they will prefer. They'll be headstrong on ideologies. There'll be judges who are very passionate. Then you can be equally passionate. They will travel. It's a nice judge. Then some judges are extremely fixed. They will have some notions. This means this. Writ petition, alternate remedy, any irrespective of merits, you have to kill it on alternate remedy. So with these judges, don't start pinpointing that you have fixed notions. You are not going to win the case. Maybe he has a fixed notion. Try it again. Try it 5 times. You may succeed 2 times. He may have fixed notions. But a judge still is a human being. So once or twice he may also err in your favor. Take that advantage, even though he has a fixed notion. So these are the different types of judges you are likely to see in life in your profession. Different types of opponents. Opponents who are very fair. Then you be fair to them. Opponents who are flexible and accommodative. You also extend the same flexibility and accommodation. Opponents who are very shrewd, then it's a chess game. You must be able to anticipate. With a shrewd opponent, always be vigilant. A shrewd opponent can storm you anytime, surprise you any moment. Simply, he will tilt the scales any moment. So, you must always be very, very vigilant with a shrewd opponent. With a cunning and crooked opponent, you have to only win through dharma. It's a long drawn process. But I've seen out of my experience, crookedness and cunningness doesn't work. It works temporarily. You have to be very patient, very tolerant, and he or she will throw body line on you. They will castigate remarks on you. They will speak ill of you, ill of your client, ill of the case. Unless you're tolerant and patient, you can't win a crooked, because court will keep watching you, how you react. If you counter-react, then court will say, okay, see, after all, he's doing a mistake. If you counter-react, court will think both of you are doing mistakes. So it will take a call, whose mistake should be supported. So be tolerant and be patient and handle it through the arm of truth. Because of lack of time, I'm not expanding it. It's a huge area. See, every time you will face some important cases where truth will be tested in your life. And in those cases, you have to be on the side of truth and work for truth. You may suffer a lot. Truth works out only slowly. Truth finally succeeds, but it succeeds after a long time. So that grind will happen in your life in some cases. Those are all cases which will transform you into greater human beings, other than be a professional. Then strategic counsels. Again, shrewd and strategy has to be, you have to be very vigilant, very vigilant. And counsels who can lay a trap for you. In such cases, please understand, if a counsel is capable of trapping you, you have to be a master on facts. You have to be thorough yourself personally. The support of a junior is not going to help in those cases. A counsel who is going to trap you, you should know everything start to end. Only then you can handle that case. And a counsel who's misleading, wait for your turn. Don't start up and shout that is misleading. Court will not, because he's already arguing. Wait for your turn, note it down, and stand up and put it neatly. These are all the misrepresentation on facts and law. Misleading counsels should be pointed out to the court, but you have to wait for your turn. There will be a time for you to say that, time it properly, and then tell the court. And let me close with this. These are things which, as lawyers, we should practice throughout our life. With this, I close. 1. Never challenge the judicial institution and its authority, especially when you're coming up in life. See, it is so charming to abuse and talk in public, freedom of expression. I'm not getting into that at all. I'm talking about how you have to grow as a professional. So, never challenge a judicial institution or its authority. Nani Palkiwala has said this repeatedly. Individuals will fail if you start fighting with institutions. Because institution is bigger than you, stronger than you. It has its own ability to sustain. So you will fail and not the institution. Now, what's the use? Going and knocking your head on a rock. So don't do that. 2, don't speak ill of an institution. When you are growing, when you are upcoming as a lawyer, don't speak or ill against an institution in public domain. Those are all. See, people who want to do it, that is their profession. You have to choose it as a profession. Otherwise, you can't be staying in a court and become a successful lawyer and also abuse the court. You decide what your path is going to be. That's a choice. I'm not saying this is right or that. I'm nobody to come. I'm only telling you, if you want to succeed in the profession, these are all the things which you should not do it in your life. 3, never gossip about any judges in the corridor. These are all things. Corridor talks for a judge is the most, for a lawyer is the most juicy part. Because till your case comes, you will be only gossiping initially. So gossip is a big time pass. And when you start gossiping about judges, this will reach the ears of the judges sooner or later. And there will be people who will try to magnify it multifolds if you are successful also. So be very careful, stay away from this. 4, when you are growing, avoid sarcasm and criticism. Don't be judgmental over every damn thing. You would have joined the bar 1 year old and you comment about the High Court, comment about the benches. Well, don't do all that. Don't be too smart when you're growing in the profession. And have the idea, see, it is ultimately, it's like a house. Can you start abusing your house and can you stay in peace? So, if institutions have to change, that's a process people who want to do will do. What can you do from your end? It is the duty of every lawyer who uses the institution to do his profession should add value to that institution. That should be our contribution. That is a professional ethic. What you can do, if you don't do the first 4 and do the last one, what little you can do in contributing to the institution, please contribute your value in whatever form. So, 1 hour. With these, I'm once again thanking the Parishad, the Orissa branch, and all the seniors. And please offer my pranams to all the learned judges who have heard me for 16 years, and judges who adorn the court, and my dear colleagues of the Orissa bar. I'm always very, very fond of you because that's the first court in my life where I visited outstation as wearing a senior gown. So that will always remember Lingaraja and Puri Jagannatha has always been very, very, it has been closer to my heart. And whenever I get the next opportunity to come to Cuttack, I will do one physical meeting post-pandemic. It's an assurance I give to all of you. Namaste and thanks once again for this great opportunity.